on the show to talk about that amazing challenge she's doing for breast cancer research. 365 days worth of running to come. Fraser, I did see it in your eyes. You were thinking you wouldn't mind. Would you mind having a go at that in 2024? Run every day.
About 36 days I might be able to manage. Add a 5 on the end and I'll pass.
Phenomenal effort, it really is. So we'll put all the details out, how you can support Jo. We'll put that up on the Facebook page, and we'll definitely follow how these final few months go. Just going back to what we were talking about in part one, and a really great start to the show, looking back on the Ryder Cup win for Europe, and a question from a pretty accomplished local golfer, actually, in Richard Scott. He says, Katie, put Liv aside for 1 minute. It must be certain that Ian Poulter will captain a team one day, but when will that be? He'd be a perfect captain for an away fixture in the USA. That's Richard's question. What do you make of that?
Interesting pose. I think Liv is still a deep cut. Very difficult to get over it. They made their decision. They went for the dollar and sacrificed the Ryder Cup positions because of it. And some could argue they put the Ryder Cup team into some disarray because of it as well. As it turns out, it's almost worked out as a positive because the team has rallied so well without those guys, Poulter, Westwood, Garcia, and people like Thomas Peters, who should be, for me in the side. But again, he went to Liv as well. I don't think so. I think we should really move on now, and I think he would make a great captain. I'm not disputing that, but I think because of the decision he made to go the way he did, I think it's a detrimental move to bring him back as a captain.
I agree with Katie, actually. I think we're all intrigued to see how this supposed merger is going to work out in the next couple of years. But, Poulter's stance now, certainly for the next 2 to 4 years, I would completely rule him out. It's fragmented relationships he's got with some key European players now, not to mention Rory McIlroy for a start. I haven't liked the demeanour on him and Westwood since they've gone there. I think they've been slightly overly aggressive about it, slightly overly bullish about it. And it's a shame. He's got a superb Ryder Cup legacy. We'll never forget what he did in Medina. He dragged Europe to that final day, kicking and screaming at 10-6 and gave them a chance. I don't think it's a realistic option for the foreseeable future, sorry to say. And it's a good question from Richard, who is an excellent local golfer himself. And he's right to raise the point, because it will be raised. It will come up at some point, but personally, not in the foreseeable future for me.
Yeah, okay. And a few years ago, you would have said Ian Poulter was nailed on to Europe at one point. And actually, Katie, I like Richard's idea that an away fixture, you just think that would have been an intriguing prospect, wouldn't it? Poulter captaining Europe away from home.
It would, but then, he's never tasted a lot of big success in America himself either. So you want somebody who's tasted success in America. Ideally, I mean, look, Luke Donald is the perfect man, isn't he? As it happens,
you said no.
Sorry,
you said no in part one to Luke Donald.
No. What I meant was he was perfect as captain because he has American experience. To do it again, I just don't agree with the principle. We're not in a league here. No, it's not home and away in a league. This is a whole new ball game the next time.
But should you not have the best man for the job?
Yeah, and it isn't necessarily going to be him.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. No, that's fair. And Fraser, just to wrap up the golf, actually, I think one thing we wanted just to touch on as well, whether the Ryder Cup will inspire more young players to start playing in Pembrokeshire.
This always intrigues me, Ben, because it's the one event where non-golfers come out, for every weekend of the year. Look, I'll go out and say it, and I truly believe it. It is the best team sporting event in the world, bar none. And you look how it captivates for 3 days. KT may put me right here. I don't get the impression, though, that it leaves a legacy in the same way that we talk about with maybe the Lionesses in the Women's World Cup and what's that done for girls' football, what Ashes 2005 did for cricket. I certainly don't get that impression in Pembrokeshire. Whether that's an accessibility thing with golf now, with expense, I don't know. But, KT, I'd be interested to hear your version of this. Because my impression at the moment is junior golf isn't flourishing in Pembrokeshire. When you look at junior sections, they're not boasting about numbers, that's for sure.
No, they're not. For me, there's not enough engagement with the top players, with juniors in golf. Just as probably there isn't, or I don't know if there is in football. Is there? Do they engage properly with junior boys and girls in football? They don't do enough of that in golf. And I think it doesn't have the same legacy as it does in other sports, because Ryder Cup is like a sort of world away for people.
Yeah.
It's a spectacle which is like so divorced and separate from normal life that it's not like watching your local football team, is it?
No.
And where your kid will go and watch their idol play every Saturday. This is like something on the telly in the distance. So I don't think it has the same effect. I agree with you.
Okay, let's move on to some local football, shall we? First up, well done to the Bluebirds. Haverfordwest County, I think, had a good week, actually. They needed it. They went to Cardiff Met Uni and drew 1-1 on Tuesday last week, and then they beat Aber 3-0 at the Bridge Meadow. And Fraser, that was needed, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They were actually a couple of minutes away from winning in Cardiff Met and then nearly lost it. Went 1-1 in injury time, and they saved an injury time penalty. But yeah, it was desperately needed. We spoke last week and said if they didn't win in Cardiff Met, they simply had to beat Aberystwyth at home. Aberystwyth in a very poor season, and gives themselves a bit of breathing space, but there's still a long way to go. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah,
and just talking to Joe, who did the Cardiff half, so did the Haverfordwest manager, actually. Tony Pennock did it yesterday as well. So well done to him, and he's kept quite calm about things as well, because it has been a slightly tricky run for the Bluebirds. He impresses with how he speaks. Locally as well, Fraser, in the first hour, we got reaction to a win for Goodwick in the FAW Trophy. They won at South Gower, didn't they? And what else happened locally this weekend?
Yeah, great win for them, actually, in that competition. Chris said interesting what he said there about wanting to keep challenging the players, and that's why he's entered that competition, to keep them fresh. But obviously Hakin took advantage of that, beating Merlin's Bridge, so they go clear at the top now in Division 1, took advantage of Goodwick not playing. Clarby hammering Tenby 6-1 actually was a turn-up. I didn't see that coming, and Clarby's league position actually looks very healthy now. So that was one result which really stood out for me. And looking at Division 2, it's taking shape already. You've got Moncton seconds there, you've got Narberth at the top, you've got Branston in there as well. So you're looking like a three-way battle for that title too. So things are beginning to take shape now. There is obviously bit of rain that's knocked about in the last couple of weeks, and we do have these periods of disruption and weeks without football. We've suffered them for 4 waterlogged pitches. I'm praying it doesn't come to that, because it just causes chaos at the end of the year. But so far, we're getting pretty much full Saturdays in, which is good.
Good stuff. And in the first hour of the show, every week, we always run down the results and goal scorers as well, around about 7:15. So you can catch those again if you listen as the podcast. That's available on the website, purewestradio.com. Local rugby, KT, you were at Narberth, I think, at the weekend, weren't you?
Yeah, in the driving rain. It was like the tide was coming across the Lewis Lloyd ground, actually. Slippery conditions, but Narberth held it together really well. Lively side, they played against Dunvant. They're kind of rivals, because I think they were at the same number of points, so very close to each other in the league. Dunvant played well in the first half. I think it was 10-8 or something like that at half-time. Got the penalties. And the boys caught the ball really well for the high ball. I was really impressed. Then Narberth took a bit more control in the second half and ran away with it. Well, didn't run away with it, but they ran away winners, with scoring a couple of really good tries. I really like this scrum half from Narberth, Lewis Gibby. He came off halfway through the second half, but he's a live wire. He's slippery, isn't he? And he scores tries for fun.
He was actually, as I was coming to the end playing at St. David, went back to play at St. David, was playing at scrum half, and he was a youngster coming through Pembroke at the time, and I'd been quite confident of getting the better opposite number 9s all season, and that was the first where I wasn't overly content with how the individual battle came coming off. I knew I had a player on my hands. I had some running and chasing to do that day. No, but you're right. He's come of age. He's powerful. He's quick. He's aware, and he's a threat. He's a real player.
Good win for Narberth, and they're chasing Brecon now, who are the league leaders. So that'll be an interesting match when we play them.
Good stuff. And actually, pembrokeshiresport.co.uk, as always, has some great match reports and details on all the rugby that happened. There was a local derby in Pembroke. Pembroke beat the Pembroke Duck Harlequins 17-10, didn't they? You can read about that online as well. Plenty of match reports from the weekend's action. We touched on it in part 1 as well, and we should look ahead to the weekend. Wales will be back in action, won't they? 2:00 on Saturday. Fraser, how are you seriously feeling ahead of Georgia? I think, if someone had said to you going into this game, Wales will be where they are in the group, having beaten Australia, you would have taken that, wouldn't you?
Oh, of course you would have. Of course you would have. No, I like the selection for Georgia. Davy Lake's come back in as captain, but it's not wholesale changes. It's not done a blanket 12, 13 men in, which was what we did against Portugal. And as a result, we gave a disjointed display. We need momentum now going into the quarterfinals. He's picked a strong side. I like that. I think it's just 1 point it works out they need now after Fiji's result on the weekend to top the group. You'd back them to get that. You don't you don't underestimate Georgia. They can spoil. They've come on leaps and bounds the last couple of years. They've beaten Wales. Saw that their clash, that they pushed Fiji all the way. We're actually leading 9-0 at one point in the second half and looking at 1 point odds on to win that. So Georgia will be a test, but I'm glad he's gone strong. I think Wales will win on the weekend and then go through as winners into the quarterfinal.
Yeah, KT, confident for Saturday?
Yeah, confident. It's always a banana skin, a potential banana skin, depending on how they psychologically approach it. It's top level sport, and the psychology is very important. It's easier to sort of relax and say, "Oh, we'll beat these guys." No, you can't go into it with that mindset. You've got to go in saying, "This is a tough side. We're going to be on our guard here and on our mettle." Because I was so impressed with, I don't know about you, Fraser, but so many players were on it against Australia.
Oh, yes,
there wasn't a weak player on that pitch. We got to the rucks, the mauls, with an urgency I haven't seen before.
It's the most cohesive clinical performance I've seen for a while.
Absolutely.
For a long time. Yeah.
Very impressive. And confident is the answer to your question, Ben, but only if they stick at it with the right mindset.
Okay, Wales, Georgia, that's 2:00 this Saturday. They'll be looking to march on through to the knockout stages. Well, look, the show's absolutely flown by today. I thought we should just finish off, Fraser. I don't know if you were working or watching the Liverpool-Tottenham match on Saturday evening.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was quiet evening.
Yeah, VAR. I thought you might have been. Yeah, and VAR at the centre of it again. Liverpool putting a statement out saying that they want it escalated, don't they? Quite what that means, I don't know. What was your take on that?
I mean, the obvious, it's a poor error. It's a poor human error from the VAR official. We all now know the confusion that's emerged. It is unacceptable at that level. No one's arguing against that. I thought in the immediate aftermath, Jurgen Klopp handled himself very well. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he was going to potentially combust actually in the interview, but no. And then, unfortunately, Liverpool have probably fueled the fires by putting out a completely unnecessary statement where they're saying they're still exploring all options. I mean, what all those options are, I don't know. I don't think he's talking about a replaying game or what have you. So, look, it's been a messy weekend, and we don't want to be talking about it. It was a catastrophic error. No one's denying that. But I think Liverpool would have been better served, acknowledging the apology for the PGMOL, expressing their disappointment, calling, for maybe a review of the process. I don't mind that, but suggesting they were going to take further action, I think, has gone petty and has stepped too far.
You think Liverpool were the first football team to ever have a dodgy decision go against them? I mean,
well, we lost an FA Cup final to Manchester City a couple of years ago, and replay showed that Sergio Aguero shouldn't have won a penalty. So I wouldn't mind that replayed actually, because I've never seen Swansea in FA Cup semi-final. So there's going to be a few backdated campaigns for replays if this goes through, I think, to be honest with you.
I think West Germany would like a look at the City.
That's a point. Yeah.
I did think the statement was a bit ridiculous, to be honest, and I think I understand it was, like you say, it was an error. Errors do happen. I think VAR actually does reduce those errors a little bit, but you're still going to get the odd one, and unfortunately, that was the case, wasn't it? So,
I think it's interesting, Ben, that the error was acknowledged. I think latest I've heard is that Liverpool are asking for the audio of the discussion.
Right. Yeah.
Is that correct, Fraser?
Yeah.
They put an application this afternoon.
Right.
And quite how that will change things, I don't know. But I think they obviously want to hear why the VAR official was confused about what he was looking at, basically, because I think the VAR official made the point that he thought he was just saying, that was onside and the goal should stand, when actually the communication wasn't there. And I think we could probably do a whole show on it, really, about why it works so much better in other sports than in football. They don't seem to be able to ask the right question. But unfortunately, we are out of time, so maybe we'll have to leave that for another week. Hopefully this time next week, we'll be talking about Wales marching on into the knockout stage of the tournament. I'm sure we will at the Rugby World Cup. Fraser, Katie, I've enjoyed your time, enjoyed your company as well. It was great to chat to Joe. We do need to go. TJ, with the magnification of rhyme, is next, live on Pure West Radio. We will see you next week. Good night.